I used to believe love could fix anything, and I want to tell you exactly how wrong I was, because the day I understood that truth, I was standing in my own driveway in Sacramento watching two strange men load my life into the back of a black SUV, while my husband wouldn't even look at me. But I need to start before that. I need to start with the good part because there was a good part, and I won't let anyone take that away from me either. I married Ryan Parker on a warm October afternoon at a little church off Fair Oaks Boulevard. I was 30, he was 33, and I remember thinking that finally, after years of bad dates and men who didn't call back, I had found someone steady. Ryan worked construction back then. He had rough hands and a laugh that filled up a room. And when he looked at me across a table at the diner where we had our first date, I felt like somebody had finally seen me. I was working the register at a home goods store on Arden Way, folding towels and ringing up curtain rods, and I didn't need much. I just wanted a home, maybe a baby someday. Sunday mornings with coffee and the newspaper spread across the kitchen table. For about a year, that's what we had. Then the small things started. $50 gone from the joint account. Ryan coming home smelling like whiskey on a Tuesday. He'd laugh it off, tell me he'd had a rough day, and I believed him because I wanted to. That's the thing nobody tells you about loving an addict. You don't fall for the lie once. You fall for it 1,000 times, a little differently each time, until one day you look up and you don't recognize your own bank statement. By year 3, he'd lost his job. By year 4, he was gone some nights until sunrise, and I'd sit at our kitchen table in my robe, staring at the phone, telling myself he was fine, he was just blowing off steam. We sold my grandmother's ring first, then the truck. Then there was a knock at the door about the mortgage, and I remember standing there in my socks on the cold tile, signing papers I didn't fully understand, just trying to keep a roof over us. I kept believing. That was my sin, if you want to call it that. I kept believing in a version of Ryan that existed less and less each year. The night everything ended, I didn't even know it was happening. I was home alone watching some rerun on the couch, wondering where he was. He'd told me he was meeting an old buddy. What he was actually doing was sitting at a card table inside a mansion I would come to know far too well, owned by a man named Victor Blackwood. I found out later, piece by piece, what happened that night. Victor collected things, land, buildings, people who owed him money, and he collected them the way some men collect cars. Ryan had lost thousands to him already, more than we had. And somewhere in that haze of desperation and bourbon, Ryan pulled out his wallet to show he had nothing left to bet. And there I was, tucked behind his license. A photograph from our wedding day. Victor asked who I was. Ryan told him. And Victor, who was used to buying anything he wanted, made an offer that no decent man would ever make and no desperate man should ever accept. One final hand. Win and every debt disappears, plus $100,000 walks out the door with you. Lose and you walk away from your marriage, and Victor takes me instead, with papers already drawn up by lawyers who owed him favors. Ryan said yes. I want you to sit with that for a second, the way I've had to sit with it for years. My husband gambled me like a chip on a table. He lost. 2 days later, 2 men showed up at our house. I remember the calm, almost bored way they told me to get in the car, like they'd done this before, like I was a piece of furniture being repossessed. I screamed. I fought. I called for Ryan, and he stood on our porch and didn't move, didn't speak, just watched them take me. And something in his face told me he already knew this was coming. They drove me 3 hours north into hill country, past vineyards and oak trees, up a long gravel road to a ranch so big it had its own gate and its own silence. That silence became my whole world. Victor Blackwood was 52, silver at the temples, always dressed like he was about to be photographed. He never raised his voice. That was the worst part. He didn't need to. He told me, calm as anything, that I belonged to him now, that Ryan had signed away his rights, that no one was coming for me. He took my phone, my ID, everything that proved I was Jennifer Parker, and not just some woman who existed for his convenience. For 3 years I lived inside that ranch like a ghost in a beautiful house. I had a room with a view of hills that turned green in winter and gold in summer, and I hated how pretty it was because pretty didn't mean free. Victor controlled what I ate, who I spoke to, when I could walk outside. There were cameras in the hallways. There were men who watched every door. I marked time by the seasons changing outside a window. I couldn't open more than a crack. I won't pretend I didn't break down some nights, curled up on that big cold bed, crying until my throat hurt, wondering if my mother back in Ohio even knew I was still alive. But something in me refused to let Victor have all of me. He could lock the doors, but he couldn't touch the parts of me that remembered who I was before any of this. I held on to that, quietly, stubbornly, like a candle I refused to let go out. That's when I met Ethan Brooks. Ethan was the ranch's head of security, a former Marine with tired eyes and a way of standing that told you he'd seen things he didn't talk about. At first he was just another guard, following orders, keeping his distance. But I noticed things. The way he'd linger a beat longer at my door. The way his jaw tightened when Victor humiliated me in front of the staff. Slowly, in small ways, he started helping. An extra blanket in winter. A few honest words when no one else would look at me like a person. Over many months, trust grew between us, careful and quiet, built on nothing but small kindnesses that meant everything. Ethan had started keeping records, dates, names, financial documents he wasn't supposed to see. He was building a case, piece by piece, waiting for the right moment. That moment came on a stormy October night, 3 years almost to the day since I'd been taken. Rain hammering the roof, thunder rattling the windows, and Ethan came to my door and said, "Tonight." I won't ever forget running through that storm, mud pulling at my shoes, headlights sweeping the hills behind us as Victor's men gave chase. I won't forget the sound of my own heartbeat drowning out the thunder, or Ethan's hand gripping mine as we reached the county road where a police cruiser, alerted by an anonymous tip Ethan had arranged days earlier, was waiting. Victor was arrested within the week. Investigators found more than they ever expected: kidnapping, fraud, years of buried crimes. Ryan was arrested too for his part in the wager that started it all. Years later, I live in Portland now, in a small apartment above a bakery, working at a neighborhood grocery store where the regulars know my name and my coffee order. I have quiet evenings and Sunday mornings that belong to no one but me. One afternoon this past spring, I looked up from the register and there was Ethan, standing by the flowers, looking older and steadier and a little unsure of himself. We didn't say much that day. We didn't need to. We started seeing each other slowly months later. No rush, no promises we weren't ready to make. I've learned that freedom isn't loud. It's coffee going cold while you read a good book. It's a door you can lock or unlock as you choose. I lost everything money can buy once, and I found out it was never worth as much as the simple, ordinary right to walk out my own front door.